So before we mess with the shape a bit, let's just put some temporary colors on this, just block in some colors. So we'll put a gradient map here, and we hook it up to one of our colors. Maybe we can use the blue channel this time. And what we'll do here is I'll just minimize this window a bit, and we'll start grabbing some colors from our reference here. So all we do is click this gradient editor on this gradient map node. We'll pick a gradient, and we can try to just run it across some of these. This looks pretty nice, but I grabbed over these black areas here. So what we can do here to clean that up is to just select a bunch of these and just lift it up like so. That's a pretty decent starting point. So we can delete this line here and grab our base color and just hook this up to that. Let's just put this into the frame. So essentially what we'll be doing here is we'll sort of, as we add new elements to this graph, we'll just build a color alongside. So that looks pretty good. Obviously here, now we have the disconnect with the grout, so we'll just blend in the grout. We'll use our mask here. We'll put a uniform color. And same here, we could pick from this photo and grab like a gray that we want, or maybe like a gray that's more in the context of this. Let's do this one for now. So obviously this mask is going in the wrong direction. So to correct that, we'll just flip the order of these. You can control select these and just hit X. And for me, it seems like I just want to make this a little bit brighter to contrast a bit more. And there's a bunch of these values that, you know, seem a bit close to each other. So we can either re-grab this. So let's just copy paste this so we'll have a backup of that. We can just grab again. If you grab way more values, it has way more sample points. So we'll do the same here. We just go in and clean up these dark spots, and to get more precision here, we just scale up this window. So let's kill these guys, these guys. Here we can you know, mix in some of these other colors. We'll kill this whole chunk here. We can add some points so we get a little more of this orange in here. That looks like something as well. We can put this on the plane. We can try to match the camera angle and see if we like the colors. So maybe this had too many of these kind of brighter colors. We can add a different one where we just focus on more of these colors. And what we can do then is just crossfade these into each other. So we just blend these two together. Let's flip the order of these. So here we have a just a decent starting point based on that reference. But if we, want to match one of these other ones, just sample the color from those. We'll maximize here again. So let's go back in time here a bit and move back to our shape splatter. See if we can add just a little more dynamism. It looks like we've been working with the perfect roofer here. Everything is perfectly aligned. So let's mess up his work. So what we can do here is we just put some very low numbers into these offset vertical here. So maybe like a 0.1. And all of a sudden, like, there's no perfect horizontal lines anymore. We don't want to do the same with this horizontal, as it kind of starts messing with how the roof is constructed, because all these waves are, sitting perfectly in each other for the water to run down perfectly. And what we also can do here is we can check out these random rotation. So we don't want to use any of these because they're just, chaos agents. But we do want to look at this guy here. So it's using our background input here. We can rotate based on these values. So let's put a really low value into this. Just adds that tiny bit of chaos to it. Makes it more realistic. And don't forget to save. Look at the normal map a bit. It's sometimes helpful to look at the normal to look for issues, but I think so far so good. Let's make this a bit smaller again. So, looking at our reference here, we should look at some ways of recreating some more broken tiles. So what we'll do here is we'll go back to our initial setup here, and we'll actually create a separate utility node. So let's do that here. And we'll call this one tile breaker. And we just need an output node. And for now, we will just go back into this one because we just need to steal these so we can see what we're building in here. Okay, so this is our tile setup, the one single tile. So we're going to set up something similar to the cracks we did before, but we're going to make these a little bit different. We're going to use a splatter, circular. We're going to set this one to discs. And we can set this one down to maybe 3. Crank up our radius a bit so it's a bit more random. And we can play with the random radius as well. Just max that out. And we will do the same here. We'll do the luminance random. And we'll hook this up to histogram scan and just max that out. And we'll run this the same way as before through this distance node. Set that to a lot. We can do a bit more of these. You can play with the scale random as well. So if pretty much if everything is uniform, you get these straight lines, but as soon as you mess with scale random, you start getting a bunch of these curves, which in this case we'll use it for like cracking this tile and offsetting some of the details. We'll hook this up to a safe transform. I'm not going to use that right now. You'll see in a second here why I'm putting that in there. We'll hook it up to a directional warp. We need a Perlin noise with some kind of like low number for larger scale shapes. So essentially, we just want some more of these curves. So let's crank up this to something higher like that. And here it doesn't really matter what direction it is, but it's breaking these perfect lines up. So let's set it to 45. We'll go through the same motions as before. We'll move these guys up here. Edge detect is to create these crack lines. Tiny bit of roundness. Let's set it to something low. Maybe 1.5. This will run through a bevel. Let's try a little bit more. Bevel. That looks okay for now. I want to break this up a bit, so let's add a cloud node in here. Use this clouds 1. I'm going to lower the resolution of this, but we're going to do it this way. I'm going to lower this to a 64, just so we get really soft blurry shapes. So we're going to put this guy through a slope blur just so we can want to break up our perfect cracks a bit. So set this to min. Let's lower that. Try 0.75 maybe. Put a normal node in here, so we'll just hook that up to a normal and we'll do a 30 intensity. Let's do a bit more, 65. Just as a debugging tool here for set it to multiply 0.1 maybe. Okay, there you see the cracks on the tiles. You can mess with this a bit more. You know, you can mess with pattern amounts. Save that for now. So next step here is to also create some gradients out of this flood fill here. So let's move this guy up here. Get some space. And we do a flood fill to gradient. So it takes this cell pattern here from this edge detect. The flood fill creates these shapes. And now we can create gradients and we can put them at whatever angle we want. So we want to put them at, just so the dark spots kind of faces up a bit. We can randomize the angles a bit as well. And we'll blend this with our per the noise. I want to do an overlay here. And you see what the overlay is doing. It's just pushing and pulling all these grayscales to kind of wobble it a tiny bit. Lower that a bit more, just so we don't get a perfect straight gradient. Also, we run this through a safe transform that we can tile. Or let's just set it to 45, which means it will tile just a little bit, so we don't have the exact same pattern. This guy we will run through a distance node just to tighten up the gaps. And we'll use the edge detect as the mask and this one in here. Tighten up the gaps completely. And this we will run into a gradient map. Essentially let's first set this to grayscale. So we take the midpoint and set that to white and set both of the edges to black. We'll add another midpoint here. We can push the dark spots off to the sides. So what I want to do with this is just create, in the corners of these cracks, I want to create these chiseled cuts where like that piece has fallen off, essentially. And this one we will overlay with our cloud. So that's why we set this one down, so we still have this one high res here. An overlay is the blend mode that doesn't affect anything white or black. So that's why I'm using that on here, and it doesn't really, darken anything. So now we have a little bit of detail in our gradient spots. And we will blend this on top of this. And we'll set this to multiply. 0.5. We have a bit of noise here, so we should make sure we have correct values in here. So we'll make sure this one is white. And this one is white as well. And here we can play around with, how much of this do we want in here. We can play around with the intensity of this one to see, like, yeah, we're actually, offsetting with those shapes. But you see, it's pretty sensitive as it's adding these holes in the center. So keep it around this range. Maybe a 0.6 is fine. Let's do 0.55 to just be on the safe side. And the final step in this little tile breaker node here is to also offset these cracks here. So we will do a directional warp using this one as a base. And just play around with it until it looks okay. I think that looks good. And then we blend the cracks on and these edges. And then we have something like this. And now we'll hook this one out to this output. And we'll hit save. So now we have a node here that can go in and help us add damage to here, but before we leave this node, we'll go in and expose some values here. So we can go in and expose this pattern amount. And we can also expose this ring rotation. So we can rotate our pattern we have created. So we'll hit expose on that guy as well. And also on this safe transform, we can expose this offset. That means we can rotate our pattern, we can push it left or right. We can also expose this warp angle here. So now if we hit save and we double click on an empty space, we can go in and change this to say crack amount. Just have logical names that you understand. And here we can kill this group name and we can say okay, let's call it rotation. Offset works as offset. We can call this warp direction. And we can set this to like another value by default. Something that looks clean. Okay, so let's head back to our main graph. And we can start by just adding, let's add 2. Let's add, so we have 4 actually. You see the graph looks interesting right now, but we can now put a roof profile down here. And we can keep this guy here. Oh yeah, one thing that I forgot to mention, we need to go back in here, we need to add an input. So we add an input grayscale here. No, not input value, input, and I need to click this guy, perfect. And these two we could just kill from in here. So now we have the ability to hook this up to something here. Pattern 2. So we can add this to pattern 3 as well, and we can hook this one up to pattern 4. So what we can do on these is we could just hit our random seed to find a different tile, or we can actually go in and tweak our pattern to make sure we get like an appealing crack pattern. We can start by offsetting this and see, like, does that look good? Does that repeat too much? Let's try a lower value here. That looks interesting. Maybe like rotating that guy all the way around. Yeah, just a matter of tweaking here. This guy looks fairly interesting. Maybe with this detail here it will repeat too much. And this guy. and we can see now that that little overlay we had in there is a little too intense. Set this down to a lower value. Try 0.45. We could expose it as well. We could tweak it in real time. I think that looks good. There's a fair amount of repetition in here. Maybe that crack is like not the best for to see over and over. That looks a bit better. And of course we could just go in here and crank this up. I think this one is maximum 8 patterns. So we can try doing 6 different ones. And we can also duplicate this node and hook it up to this guy and then, you know, mess with the initial rotation of this whole tile. Actually offset it. And then we can use this tile as tile number 5 as well. And this one is number 6. This one looks cool, but I would like to be able to offset this guy a bit more. So we can go in here again. We can expose this warp intensity as well. Go back here. We can crank this up a lot if we want to. I just want like that tiny bit of separation is cool. The only problem with pushing it off like this is that we have to go in here with a transform node to correct it back to the center. Or rather, seems like that broke the initial setup, so we can actually do it in this node. Seems like that's a no-go, so let's not do that. The thing that's happening is that our let's reset this back. The stuff that's happening inside this tile breaker is our cell pattern here is they're too close in value, so when I push it off, not much is happening, so we can put auto levels in between these two to get more punch. But that might change, you know, the other ones too much. But now, since we have the intensity exposed, we can correct that. So now this one is offsetting a lot here, but now I can just go in and adjust by tweaking this. And the same for this one, it's too much. So that's how you can get a bit more chaos, and you can take this more extreme if you want to, you know, crack them wide open even more. So let's play a little bit catch up here with our color and work a bit on that. So before this one comes in, I want to add some more details to this because we added some surface damage and stuff on here. So let's add a blend here, and we'll add a uniform color again. And I'm looking for like a fresh tile color because I'm imagining some of these are pretty fresh, these damages that are on the tiles. So we'll do a histogram scan. We'll crank that up. So wherever we have this damage, you sort of expose this the underlying fresh terracotta clay here. But it seems like we also want to put our final cracks on there. So we'll do a invert here on our cracks. And we'll blend that with this mask. Multiply that on, so we only have cracks where we want them. And if you select this line here, we can blend them together by using an add here. So yeah, wherever we have these cracks here, the problem is we're not getting these cracks here, but that could be the difference in, like, you know, these are older, so they're aged with the rest of the tile. So it's not really a problem for us. You can put it like this so we don't get overlapping. Overlapping on nodes like that is difficult to read. You don't know if this one is going in there or not. You can also hold Alt-Shift. We can just select that point and move it around. So that looks pretty neat. And now we have those on there. And after that, we put our grout color. So that looks good. But before here, we could reuse the same color again. We can do just make this darker for now. So we have one color, but we're driving it with that. So what I want to do here is create a little bit of runoff from where this this grout is here. So we'll use a non-uniform blur, and we'll use this mask twice here, but we'll invert the top one. And we'll crank up these guys to max. Set it to down like that. these we can crank up. So now essentially, like wherever we have our grout, we'll now have this dirt sort of runoff. And we can dial it in here. You can see like it's get some variation in there. To vary that up even more, we can blend something. Separate these. We can blend something on there. Since we have our noises from before, we can maybe blend, yeah, either one of these two. Let's try this one. Multiply that on top. We create like a whole bunch of noise on there. We can try to histogram scan this one. Let's look at this guy here. Yeah, a little bit of runoff of that. Could also set this one back resolution so we get like a lower res noise, which means just a little bit softer, so we don't get every damn pixel showing up there. You can play around with this way too, where you just offset, making it like an awkward size. Whatever looks good. Yeah, so this is coming together. I think the next thing I want to add to the shapes is just like a little bit of noise to it. So we can add this fractal sum base node. Something like this. Let's blend this on here. You can use subtract. You can set it to something incredibly low. You essentially just want to hint a bit of surface variation. And depending on where you want to take your tile, sort of age-wise, you do more or less. Yeah, so there you see in the normal map. If I remove that, it's like adds a bit more imperfection, but still looks relatively new. I also want to vary up my tile color a bit. So actually, before we put this guy in here, I want to add another grunge map. We can use, I think this one is pretty good. Lower the contrast of this one a bit. And I want to use this one as a mask for where we see this. If I undo that, you see the difference. Looks a whole lot more interesting this way. But also we want to use this one for color. So let's just hook this up to a gradient map. Let's undo that and add a blend node here in the color track here. I want to set this one to max lighten like this, but we don't want to use these black and white colors. We want to grab from our reference again. I think we can use, let's use this picture again. Gradient, pick gradient, and we'll pick something like this. Right away we got something really interesting. Not sure if it's what we want or not. Obviously now it's like completely overriding all this, so we should fade it out a bit. Yeah, pretty natural looking right away. We can also hook this guy up to a directional warp, so we offset it based on our earlier like intensity masks that we set up. So let's go for the alpha again. And we can maximize. Let's do 80. And this way. And we did it for both this color and this mask, which makes it play like hand in hand with where a little grimy noise is showing up. So where the noise is showing up, we have this brighter color as well. That looks pretty good. I want to adjust this color, make it a little bit brighter. Stands out a bit too much, although there'll be more layers on after this. Just dial that in. And I want to make this grout a bit brighter as well. The next step here is to look at adding some of this kind of lichen on top of everything, like this kind of moss. So we'll start by adding this grunge map 04 that has like kind of this beginnings of this splotchy pattern that we want to use. We're going to tile this a bunch of times so we can set it back to 256. It's really small. And we want to do like this brush pattern, which just kills off the edges of stuff. So let's start with something like this. We run this through a node called the tile generator. Set it to input pattern here, image input, and 18 by 18. Essentially, it doesn't matter what you do here, just need to get a good coverage of this. So we'll go down to the scale down here, set this to 4. Go down here to the bottom and change this to max. And luminous random here. And we'll do the rotation here, random rotation. And we'll do scale variation. Scale random. We'll just randomize this as much as possible. Crank this up even more, so it's not overlapping so much. We'll scale this up a bit more. And we have this little weird sliver here that I want to try to get rid of, and it looks like it's this guy here. We can try by random seeding this to something different. That looks pretty good. And if you decide to random seed your whole graph, we can actually lock this guy, say absolute and 4. So we never get those. So regardless if I randomize the whole node or not, this one will just remain this pattern, but this one will change. So this random seed will be different. Do symmetry random. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm gonna run this through the levels. Can go into this matrix here. So I'm gonna up this mid bit here. So we don't have so much coverage here. We just have a bunch. 0.6 is probably good. We can group this, frame this. We'll do the same here as well, run this through a directional warp. Pick the green maybe this time. And you know the deal, it just randomizes it. And these we want to grid, it drives me crazy. We want to blend this because we don't want this everywhere. So we can actually use the same mask again. So if you hold Control and left click one time, we can multiply this on top, and we can histogram scan this, or do our histogram select even. So if I hit D, I can dock this node in here so we don't have to see it. And this one we want to find a position and then just crank up the contrast. Depending on how much of this stuff we want, just dial it in, but let's start a bit conservative. That looks nice. And we'll blend this into our shape by using an add, but not this much. Also to note here, now I'm getting my lichen on top of my grout, which might not be ideal. I don't mind it here. You can reverse the order here and do this one after, or you could use this mask and subtract it from this result. We might do that later, but we'll see how this looks first. So we get small bumps from this. Maybe that's even too much. Just leave it like that. And this one will run into a gradient map. And we'll try to sample from, we can sample from this here. We just need to be able to enter this editor here. Pick gradient. Obviously we don't want this orange color. If we take the final points and just set them to alpha, we essentially remove those from that blend. It's a trick you can use because otherwise you have to hook this one up and create a mask out of this one. Move this forward a bit as well, so it looks more readable. You can move this one off. And now we have a bit of lichen on here. If we're not happy with this blue, I kind of want it a little more green. You can select all the nodes in here, and by using this very touchy slider, you can kind of offset the colors. I wish these were a little bit wider. You could do like this too and get more precision, but I think this is sufficient for now. So we have some of these bits on here. So let's see how to wrap this guy up here. So what do we have left? So we have a bit more color variation and to finish off our roughness. So let's start by doing a little more color here. So what I typically do is just want a bit more color that matches our height information. So let's take this guy here, our end node, essentially our height, and blend it with our AO. Just like multiply those together. And this we run through in auto levels. So we're going to run this through a gradient map. So it's always good to have an auto levels to make sure you use the full range. Because if this range would be shifted like this, there would be a lot of colors in here that we wouldn't use. So that's always a good thing to do. We can go back here to our reference. Let's see, grab some of this. Lower the precision on that. Sample a smaller space actually. Spread these guys out a bit. Just want a bit more of this, like, color banding, indicating like whatever algae and stuff that's growing on here that's like accumulating over time, or like there's, you know, soot and stuff from traffic, and then there's rain, so it creates kind of these banding effects. Blend that on here. Let's maximize so I can see what I'm doing here. And we can now delete this guy. So we've been moving these off like this. This one over here, move these guys down here. Just need a bit more space. So I want to mask this using a dirt node. This guy here. So this guy wants an AO node. He also wants a curvature. So we'll use this curvature smooth. Wait, sorry. Let's play around with this guy for a bit. We'll tile this a bit more. We're lowering the contrast of this and the dirt level. And then we use that as a mask for this. So this is what's coming in, and this is what we get with that. Might be a bit too much noise in this. See if we can massage it to something a little better. That looks alright. We can also use a node called dust that I like using. This one needs a normal. It's essentially a node you use when you create filters for substance player and stuff. So it wants a world space normal, but here everything is just tangent space. So this one we would need to see if we crank this up. It will kind of look like it's accumulating from the bottom. So we'll do a normal invert here. And then it would accumulate on ledges facing up. You see here, without that, because there's a divot here, and we now have dust accumulating on the top of this. Just keep on layering stuff on here. I like using uniform colors because I don't like introducing so much noise. We do that here, but in general, I try to keep my stuff fairly clean. We can sample a color actually from this texture here. So depending on how we want to use this, let's just use this color for now and see what it looks like. And depending on the color you pick, like here, yeah, it's like it looks like dry dust from a construction site or something. But if you could also go, greenish and make it look like algae or something like that. I think I like that little construction site feeling. It's a little bit brighter to create a little more contrast. You can see if we want to contrast this guy even more, you see how it accumulates tighter around our shapes here. More or less AO. That looks pretty cool. I think for the final touch here, I want to blend in the curvature a bit as well. And I typically overlay this on here, but lately I don't like how it's kind of like misrepresenting my colors. So I've been starting to use this add sub node instead, or add sub blend mode. It's essentially doing the same thing, but without actually manipulating the colors. You see how it kind of like rounds off the shapes a bit. I think I like that. So the thing we have left here now is to build our roughness network. Let's move this guy up here in the center because it will essentially follow along what the diffuse is doing. So I think what I want to do for that is I'm just grabbing this node and moving it along here with us. So this color wouldn't affect that, wouldn't affect the roughness unless that's something we want, but I imagine like it's the same tiles with the same sort of glaze on them. So we can start here by can essentially reuse one of these nodes or create a new one. Start with this map. And create just some kind of noisy stuff here based on a photo, but it doesn't really matter what we base it on. And we set this to grayscale. And we just hook this one up as our base starting roughness. And what I'd like to do here is just go in and put a blend node here. And we'll just blend black over. So now we're just looking at our roughness here. So I think starting out with this, let's run this through a range, histogram range. Let's see. It's like softening these values. I want to make these a little more shiny than probably they are in real life, since we'll be caking a lot of very rough details on here. Like this stuff will go in and just darken here. So let's start with that. We'll do a blend here. And we'll blend this one straight on here. And we'll set this one to add. We'll dial it back a bit so we don't really hit full white just yet. Next step here is blending the grout mask, and that one is going the wrong direction for us, so we should just invert this. And we can dock this in here. And we add this one as well. I should make this window a little bit bigger here so we can see a little bit better. Control and Shift and holding the right mouse button, you will rotate the light around this viewport. So now we'll see this part is all rough here. You can leave that at 0.5 as well. Essentially our starting point is 0.5, so this is pretty much white regardless of what we do, but we have a bit of variation in there. Do another blend node. We'll add this lichen here. There's no mask for it, but we can grab the mask from this. So if we do a alpha split node, we can grab this and use that as a mask. Yeah, like so. I highly recommend, if you do have access to, 3D scan or Megascan library or something like that, use that as a reference for what exact values to put in here. Next step is to get this stuff on here, but we have our dirt, and that's already a mask for us, so we can just do a blend here. Just add our dirt. Dirt is nice because it has this little bit of grimy stuff to it. Dial that in a bit. And finally, we have this dust on here, which adds that really nice. See, we didn't catch any of these small ledges from before. And now that dust kind of comes in and really flattens the center of that. And also these edges between tiles. And we can just hit backspace, select this node and hit backspace to nuke that. Want these to line up straight, but the benefit of building a network like this, I really like to build, the color and roughness side by side. It's like already perfectly organized, and you can see, how it relates, how they relate to each other, because they use the same mask and they just follow suit. And we can even comment like this, add a frame, or we add lichen to, everything we do here. And the same with the grout, we could lay that out this way as well. So that's a really good habit. We can still go back in here and change our colors up. I feel like maybe I want to saturate my colors a bit more. And darken them a bit as well. just to get my roughness to stand out a bit more. Also, my roughness is just a little bit extreme here. We just up the position. Something like that. So the graph is pretty much finished. I just want to show, like, how do we take this project even further? So for an example, we have this, our roof profile node here, where we just store one profile right now. So what we could do in here is we could add this multi-switch grayscale node, for instance. And essentially we can start making more curves, or different curves. So let me hook this one up to the first one actually. So if we're double clicking on this node, we can see what we're doing here. For example, if I want to make something that's a little more boxy of a shape, or a completely different profile like this. Yeah, like that. So let's save this, and we can expose this one. And we can go to input selection. And we set the label to profile selection. And we only have 2 right now, but you can build this project out to as many profiles as you would like. We can set this to clamp. So if we go back to our main graph right now, see our whole graph has updated to our new tile. But if we go on this, we can just select our default one. You could also add controls to some of these offsets. You know how like chaotic you want your tile to look. Don't go too high since it's starting to mess up, but if you're within the negative 0.5 to 0.5 range, you're pretty good. You can do more damage tiles than we do here. You can remove or add more damage. We added this control here, so you can add more cracks all over, or just much less. When it comes to color, you could, mess around with creating like enameled tiles, as in some of these references here. You can create something like this with a crackling paint, or even this glass. So that's it. Thanks for watching.